So that's the way. That was standard, but do you have an actual?
No, I have not, and I don't know what happens, but if Mary's not there, how that goes for the women's.
Well, there's, I haven't been actually doing research on lieutenant, not a historian, see, the RPA, because the person I go to is always, I've been doing another this. Once you see, I would ask him questions. Sergeant went back. It's all about information. You guys, sometimes at the beginning, right after you guys way to handle.
Yeah.
I don't see you guys. For us.
So I think we only had one role that wasn't. Then I couldn't help her either. Is what it is.
Well, I take the hat off.
Oh, this is.
Come on, what we done.
Oh, it's got oh, yes, I do.
Right, folks, it's 5:31. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. It's the Human Rights Commission. A couple of things we need to read before we start in with our meeting. As we gather today, we acknowledge that Eureka, California is ancestral territory that we upkeep. We also honor Indigenous people and territories, sovereign governments that share governance within Humboldt County, California. We gather with respect and gratitude to these Indigenous people. We thank and honor the Indigenous caretakers of this land who continue to cherish and protect it. Their elders have instructed the young to consider the 7 generations ahead as they continue to protect the rights of the land and all people who live on it. We encourage all to align and follow the lead of local Indigenous communities as they steward the land and protect all of its natural resources. We'll have a moment of silence. Okay. One additional thing I'd like to remind everybody of. It's a reminder of our function. And our function is in eradication of discrimination in housing, employment, education, public accommodation, race, religious creed, color, national origin, ancestry, physical disability, mental disability, marital status, gender, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, civic interest, or other factors. Ours is an advisory commission whose primary purpose is to recommend actions to the Board of Supervisors that may address issues related to human rights in our county. Having said that, we'll go take the roll. Call.
I call the names on screen.
Right.
Jamie.
Ellen is filling in for Carol.
I mess up, please tell me, and I will correct myself. So Jamie Jensen is not here, correct? And then so, see the signs. Guy is here. And who's the next person?
Nazanin.
Guy. Nazanin, present? Yeah, sorry, it's fine. Aaron, okay, Aaron is present. And then over there, Alyssa. Hello. Hello. And then Lisa Sunberg, I noticed is on Zoom. And Mary present. And present. And Ellen. That's correct?
So,
Thank you.
Let me ask before we go any further, can the guests that are on Zoom hear us adequately?
Can hear you a little choppy at times, but I can hear you here in Arcata.
Okay, how about you, Lisa? Well, we're going to assume
I
that you
can-
hear us if we aren't loud enough.
I can hear you. I'm driving on the road, so I'm going to be in and out of reception. I'm on my way home from a conference.
Okay, well, you drive careful. We've got two police chiefs here. Okay. Next item on the agenda is agenda adjustments. Is there any reason to change what we have on our schedule? Okay, seeing none. Just a reminder that we have one commissioner who is present on Zoom because of the Brown Act. That limits the participation of that. Everybody that's in the room can participate and can vote. I mean, everybody can participate, but it's a matter of voting that is restricted. Okay. The minutes of the March meeting were distributed. Were there any additional corrections or additions to those minutes? Okay, seeing none, we'll consider them approved. Treasurer's report.
Not too much to report. We presently have a balance as of yesterday of $488.02. And that is minus the paid out in global.
Do you think that we should start including the budgeted money, even though it's not in checking? Maybe for the future, because we're going to be talking about taking money out for something else later. Bert.
Have we not received money from Humboldt Area Foundation yet?
Yes, we did.
Yes, we did.
We did.
Yeah, that was.
Carol's still part of it?
Last meeting. And,
The Human Rights Commission?
yeah,
And it all?
that,
It's all been spent?
well, other than the current balance.
Yes.
So did she talk to you about the CHR meeting at all? The outcome of it? When they met, the board was looking at the CHR stuff?
No.
Are you
Or
speaking
she
to
follow
the
up.
commission? Don't think that was directed to us. Okay. Okay, guest speakers, are we? Oh, is that City of Eureka?
The studio controller.
No, but the second one over.
Brian at King.
That's cheap.
That's Brian. And who's, okay, that's his office. Okay. All right. I'm sorry to be so clumsy here, but we'll go ahead. We do have two guests. We had a third. They apparently were unable to make it tonight. The City of Eureka was going to do a presentation about diversity, equity, and inclusion in the city and throughout the county. I've been attending their meetings. There have been 3 so far. And it looks as though there's going to be some really good coming out of that. If they weren't able to attend tonight, I'll make sure that they are invited to come back at another point. Since we have 2 police chiefs here, one on Zoom and in person, I think we'll just go alphabetical and go with well, Arcata and Ahern both are first on the list. So we were hoping, Chief, that you could share with us developments in Arcata, especially as relate to human rights and community temperature, if you want to call it that. And then, of course, we'll follow you with Chief Jarvis from Eureka. So go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you, Chair and Commissioners and guests. I think I'm a little unprepared on the human rights side. I thought I was going to give a presentation on the state of policing in Arcata, and that's what I prepared for. I think.
That's fine.
Well, thank you, sir. But let me first start by talking a little bit about some recent cases that we've had that were well publicized regarding some hate crimes, and many of these instances occurred in communities throughout California and the nation, and that was a lot of the leafletting that was going on. We had several incidents of that in the last year here in Arcata. And the leaflets that were left in several neighborhoods were consistent with leaflets left in other areas. We've been working with the Anti-Defamation League and our allied law enforcement partners, and have, with their support, have tracked a lot of this to a group called the Goyim Defense League. And it is a hate group that conducts propaganda in many communities throughout the nation. And we do have a member of the Goyim Defense League here in Arcata. And we have interacted with that individual. There haven't been any recent cases in the last several months, but we certainly will continue, to track that and investigate criminal acts of hate crimes. You may also be aware of some vandalism that occurred at the community garden here in Arcata, and we've been working with the community garden group to support them in addition to conducting any criminal investigations. We have an open dialogue, and we have resources and equipment available to them should they choose to utilize that. I think our most recent case was about 2 months ago, where a sign and a gate were damaged. And that came after another incident of vandalism at the same garden. And so certainly a cause for concern in our community, and something that we'll continue to investigate vigorously, and really look to our community members to, be eyes and ears, and to help us be vigilant partners in identifying perpetrators so that we can send cases over to the DA's office and hold these offenders accountable. And as you know, there's so much work has been done over the last several years on the equity front here in Arcata, especially in terms of, working with within the lens and the footprint of Equity Arcata and all of the different working groups. And so, the city is continuing to be actively involved. And as the university, continues to expand, we are actively, conducting programming, to work with our partners over at the University Police Department to continue to build relationships with the university community, and to continue to make Arcata a safe place for all people, especially our BIPOC community members and students. The most recent program that we're currently vetting through the university is a Know Your Rights campaign. And that was an idea that was born out of the university community. And it's an opportunity for students and law enforcement to come together and talk about, what rights and responsibilities people have, so that our students and all of our community members are educated on, not only what their rights are, but what, law enforcement, what they can expect from law enforcement in certain situations like protests or house parties, or when, people that they're with are stopped by the police. What do they have the right to do? So it's a great education campaign and an opportunity for a lot of dialogue a lot of interaction and probably a lot of scenarios where I think we will probably learn a lot more from the students in terms of what their expectations are of law enforcement than what they could possibly learn from what they can expect from us when we do respond to an incident. So having said that, let me talk a little bit about the state of policing here in Arcata. As you know, we're a small rural agency. We've had quite a bit of turnover here in the last year. We've lost 6 officers to other departments locally and also other departments in California and Oregon. And we have 2 other officers that are pending leaving. One is in backgrounds with Fortuna PD and one is in backgrounds with Anderson PD over in Shasta County. We have hired in the last year 5 officers. 4 of them were laterals and 1 was an academy cadet that we had sponsored through the academy. We also hired a few dispatchers, a police services assistant, and we are in the process of filling a police service officer position that became vacant due to a retirement. So on the sworn officer side, we're budgeted for 27 officers. We're at 19 right now. And once we lose the other 2 here in the next month or 2, we'll be at 17, which is a 41% fewer than what we're actually budgeted for. Fortunately for us, our city manager and our city council have been very supportive of our recruiting efforts. They're allowing us to take our brand on the road and recruit outside of the county. So we've been to College of the Siskiyous and Fresno City College and College of the Sequoias in Visalia, Butte College, Los Rios, Santa Rosa, and then we're also recruiting here locally at community events. And most recently attended a recruiting effort with the California Conservation Corps, as well as a career event at College of the Redwoods. Once our staffing starts to restore, we can fill some of our vacant specialty positions, including Valley West officer, downtown officers, park ranger, administrative sergeant, school resource officer, K9, our drug task force agent, and a vacant detective position. And because traffic enforcement is really a priority for our community members, I hear it at every community event. We also would love to have the opportunity at some point down the road to perhaps bring, 1 or 2 officers in that will just conduct traffic enforcement to help keep our roadways safe. We've had quite a bit of recognition of our staff over the last year, including recognition from Mothers Against Drunk Driving for a number of DUI arrests, some investigative awards, life-saving awards, Volunteer of the Year, Employee of the Year, Officer of the Year, and Leader of the Year. And we also, one of our officers, Evan Beachel, was the Crisis Intervention Team Officer of the Year for Humboldt County. Evan received that award at the CIT conference in Pittsburgh. And recently we had 3 officers awarded and recognized by the California Highway Patrol and AAA for their exceptional achievement in vehicle theft investigations. Those were FTOs Kent Falkenstein and Travis Sherrod and Officer Chris Rogers. So a lot of recognition, a lot of hard work by our department members from throughout the organization. Couple of recognitions for their years of service this past year was Lieutenant Bart Silvers, who's our patrol commander, 20 years with the Arcata Police Department, and Sergeant Brian Hoffman, who's one of our watch commanders, 15 years with APD. A lot of training this past year: Public Records Act, interview and interrogation, background investigations, evidence management, firearms instructor, and the Sherman Block Supervisory Leadership Institute. We also implemented our military equipment use policy, our SB2 protocols, a community ambassador program. We've switched over to the National Incident-Based Reporting System once the FBI was no longer going to utilize their UCR program. And we implemented a critical online dispatcher testing program which has really been a game changer in terms of bringing potential dispatcher candidates to us. Additionally, throughout this past year, we contracted with a group out of Virginia, the Police Executive Research Forum, to bring integration, communication, assessment tactics, that's ICAT, de-escalation train the trainer program here to Arcata, in which we invited practitioners from throughout the region to be trained on de-escalation tactics and training. Some of the most up-to-date and industry standard training that was available, and we trained our entire department. We funded a radio infrastructure replacement project. I should say the council did. It's over $1 million capital improvement project. Our radios are very antiquated, and I'm happy to report that this month we're going to be actually kicking off the actual replacement of some very antiquated equipment. Everything's been bench tested, and our IT department Deputy Director Dylan Savage has been working closely with Day Wireless on actually scheduling the replacement project. We also recently upgraded our body-worn camera system to the latest technology, as well as greater battery life. Adopted a family for the holidays. We have participated in Eureka PD's Battle of the Badges blood drive, and Eureka always includes agencies from throughout the county on all of their community events, including Battle of the Badges and Shop with a Cop. And we're grateful to Chief Jarvis and his staff for always extending that invitation. We participated recently in Bowl for Kids' Sake, which benefits big brothers and big sisters, and did a lot of community engagement, and as well as received a donation from Six Rivers Masonic Lodge for the purchase of ballistic vests. And we also hosted a prescription drug take-back day site, which we try to do every April. We continue to have a vibrant internship program for Cal Poly and CR students. We hosted our third intern this past year. Sergeant Chris Wilson from APD. This is his 10th year participating in the Unity Tour ride back east. That is an opportunity to support widows and widowers and orphans of officers from throughout the country who have died in the line of duty. Chris proudly represents APD and has done so for the last 10 years, spending a lot of his own money in that effort to honor those and to support the survivors of fallen officers. And we continue to host our parent project classes through our juvenile diversion program. And then I'll finish up with just operationally, this past year in 2022, we had 4 homicides. We investigated 4 homicides. And as you know, the murder of David Josiah Lawson is still an open and active investigation. We'll continue to ask community members who were at the party or who may have information to call our 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week tip line for the case, 707-825-2590. We are in desperate need of witnesses to come forward. Our goal is to get this case back into court. We've also unprecedented, within a 1-year period from January 22nd of 2022 to January 17th of 2023, we had 5 fatal traffic collisions in Arcata. We've never seen that before. So obviously, it's a trend that we're trying to reverse. But it's important to continue to get that traffic safety message out there. And fentanyl, it continues to just be a challenge for us. It continues to ravage our community. A year ago in April alone, we had 4 overdose deaths attributed to fentanyl. So, we continue to do education and try to work with our partners here in the county, the Humboldt County Drug Task Force, to continue to hold those accountable who continue to prey on people in our community who are succumb to fentanyl and other drugs. So, our staffing is probably our number one challenge right now. We need people. working for the department in order to provide the service that our community members expect. So on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the absolute best, I'd put us at a 9.5, with 0.5 being we need some folks to consider joining APD. So we're continuing to, strategize and think of different strategies to help us attract talented people, to our organization. So, and we celebrate our 129th anniversary this coming July 31st. We became a police department in 1894. So our 129th anniversary is coming up. A lot of pride here in APD. It's an honor to be here to present to you, and I'll now open it up, see if you have any questions.
Are there any commissioners with any questions for the chief? Go ahead.
Hello, Chief. My name's Alyssa. I'm a community advocate working at Tri-County Independent Living. And as always, my concern is for people living with disabilities. And people living with disabilities have a hard time sometimes with police departments. And I was wondering if you have any training or are looking into any training on how to better interact, or if you have any concern along those lines.
Yeah, we actually, Alyssa, thank you for bringing that up. Obviously, we want to make sure that we are presenting ourselves and the services that we provide in a way that persons with disabilities are going to feel confident and trust their police officers and their staff. We don't want people to not call us because they're fearful of what may occur. So education is important. Having access to our organization is important. And on that note, our training for persons with disabilities is really, it consists of our basic academy training over at the academy at College of the Redwoods. And also we do we brief twice a day, 7 days a week. We work 12-hour shifts. And the training the most recent training that I'm aware of occurred at our briefing, where we had groups come in who advocate for persons with disabilities to talk about, what their expectations are, those with disabilities, what some of their special needs are, and how we can continue to work with all of our public safety partners, including, the Arcata Fire District and Mad River Ambulance Company, to make sure that, we are responsive, inclusive, and respectful and patient with the needs of our, disabled community members. So there's always opportunities to do more. So Alyssa, if you see an opportunity, if you think we need to revisit and have more of that briefing training, or if there's other things that we should be doing to continue to connect with persons with disabilities, I'd be more than happy to have those conversations and continue to open up our department to those who need service and have a disability.
Thank you very much.
The next question would come from Lisa. I hope you.
Yeah, hi. So a couple of questions. Just on that last comment. Do you guys get training on wellness checks for people that are prone, or not prone, but experiencing suicide, stuff like that? Then I'll ask you another question after that.
Yes, we do. The academy, plus a lot of the in-service training that is required by the state of California is specifically focused to those that are in crisis, including those who are having suicide ideation. And
Psychology, yeah.
Yep. And as all of you know, there's been so much of a demand in the last several years for not only for law enforcement to be better trained, but for communities to look for alternative responses, to people in crisis. So we've expanded our MIST program as just one example of what we're doing here in Arcata. We now have a missed clinician available 4 days a week, 6 hours a day, exclusively here in Arcata to not only manage their own caseload, but to either respond themselves or to have a dual response with an Arcata police officer to someone who is in crisis. And I know if the same question is posed to Chief Jarvis, Eureka PD really has set the standard, for those alternative responses than from the more traditional responses when you think about, the different elements that Eureka PD has put into place. So, we pride ourselves on continuing to make sure that we are providing services in a way that our community members expect it. Obviously, public safety is our number one priority. So if there are elements of a call that we need to ensure that a clinician or a subject matter expert's safety it has to be, preserved first. That's our role. And then we are doing more and more of the handoff in terms of the assessment to the practitioners, those that have that expertise.
Right. On the second part of my comments or questions, or just maybe deliberations. I'm from the Trinidad Rancheria, and we've had a lot of, I'd say, fentanyl-related incidences there. And so as a community member, it's like, to me, it's epidemic. It's like, it's at a point to where it's a crisis. And I was wondering what the response is, or what are you guys, collectively, what is being done from the state? What are you guys hearing that are some of the responses that are happening? And my concern is, are they going to elevate the I would say the people that are selling these drugs to become basically, you're killing people. So that's a status of a murderer as far as I'm concerned. You're no longer, because I just had recently a young girl who I didn't even know was visiting my mom's house right next door. And my cousin and I were called over to see, I just happened to be on a board of directors, and they handed us Narcan. So I happened to have a box of it there. And my nephew came over and said, I think I need Narcan. And luckily, my cousin had some experience, but, in dealing with this, and we were able to actually save her life. But this is, it's at an epidemic proportion at this point, and the deaths are high, and especially we have a really small community. And for the amount of deaths that we've had just recently, it's just, for me, off the charts. So I would like to know what is being done to turn up the heat on whoever's bringing this stuff in. I don't care who's selling it. Something has to be done to these people. And then how do we do? I would say community awareness. And I'm glad I had Narcan in my house. I'm going to go get some more just in case something happens in our community, so that we're prepared. Because I deal with I host a lot of youth in my house, and I have grandchildren and whatnot. But the mere fact that this is happening, I just want to see something done.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and what a heroic move by yourself, and I think that's a great example of how it really literally takes all of us in this country, in this state, and in our region here to look out for others who are in crisis and in danger of, in a case of fentanyl, losing their lives. There's so much going on. I think what I'll do is I'll start at, I think federally legislation is being looked at, statewide legislation is being looked at to do exactly what it is that you're suggesting, and that is to look at elevating the punishment for those who are not
dealers,
only creating but distributing and selling at the street level. A lot of the fentanyl in Humboldt County is coming up from the Bay Area. Luckily, we have a Humboldt County Drug Task Force that is not only, well trained, but has a lot of experience in dismantling these organized trafficking groups. And so we have some of the best and brightest right here in our county, working closely with the DA's office to not only identify, the dealers, but to evaluate every case and to see if the elements of the crime have been met in which to not only get some type of a drug conviction, but perhaps to convict them for crimes that resulted in, people being either, medically hurt or potentially who have lost their lives. And I think you're seeing district attorneys in several parts of the state who have done exactly that. They have charged dealers for murder or for attempted murder. And so one of the huge challenges is it's very difficult to recognize fentanyl from, other drugs. In fact, fentanyl is laced in pills that are marked, as what their pill form is, but there's fentanyl in there. So you have people that think they're taking one particular drug, but without any knowledge at all that fentanyl's in there. And we're seeing people die, young people, old people, all types, because of the danger that fentanyl brings. So we're making progress, but in terms of accountability, but we're up against a huge volume of drug and some very sophisticated drug trafficking networks that we continue to work every day to dismantle.
Is there any kind of public awareness? Because what would be helpful, I think, and I've always said this I was on a board of directors at United Indian Health, and I really feel like, if you don't recognize the signs, we have to teach it.
Yeah.
And you have to elevate that. I don't know if there are public service communications that can be put out there, but I really feel like, had my cousin not been there, and I just happened to have in this Narcan, this girl I'd have been calling the morgue to come, or the
Sure.
coroner to come and get her.
Right. The schools are a huge place to get that word out, whether it's your school resource officers or your juvenile diversion counselors, to work with school staff to put together programming and education, for students as young as we can get the message to, all the way through high school. The other thing too, ma'am, that I'd like to mention is that the Drug Task Force here in Humboldt County, I would say, maybe 6 to 9 months ago, put out a press release at the direction of Sheriff Hansel to do exactly what it is you're suggesting, and that is to get the word out. Is we don't want to just put press releases out announcing arrests and confiscation of drugs and guns, which are all important, but we have to continue to put education materials out through press releases, reminding people of the dangers of not only fentanyl, but some of the other drugs that are out there. So that effort will continue, but I'm proud to say that right here in Humboldt County, your Drug Task Force took that initiative and put that word out there at the direction of the sheriff, because the sheriff and all of us understand the gravity of ingesting that drug and the potential for people to continue to die.
Well, as the native on the board, I would like to see you guys reach out to the tribal governments and maybe do some kind of partnership, talk about the things that you're doing in the county, and create some kind of relationship as part of your task force, or get something going with the tribes, because we need support there too.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
At this point, thank you, Lisa. Are there any additional questions for Chief Ahern? Okay, well, I think we've exhausted the time that we have available for you, Chief Ahern. We really appreciate you being with us tonight, and good to see you again.
Good work.
Thank you all. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And next we would have Chief Jarvis. I hate to have your back to the screen, but I'm afraid that's going to be the best way to.
The chairs the biggest challenge.
Oh, well, I can't help you with that.
Being chair, commission members, it's an honor to be here. I've talked on Zoom a couple times since I've been to town January 22. Nice to be here in person. Thank you for the invitation. I had texted Mr. Holder, HR director for the city of Eureka, that if he was going to make it, I had not heard back.
Had a medical procedure booked.
Okay. I had planned on kind of following up on his comment. So much like Brian, I thought I was going to be here for a different plan. But what I would like to do is, first of all, just really commend the city of Eureka for the work they've been doing. And yeah, and I know that attending those meetings, you see all the effort that's gone into that. I don't want to speak too much into it because I haven't done the work. I'd rather Holder here talk about that because he's really put the work in.
I'm sorry. What is
It's the mercy. That's kind of the catchphrase that's going around the business world these days. So I should have started that with that. I don't like when people acronyms to me, so sorry. But they put a lot of work into that, and I came into the city of Eureka again in January 2022 and immediately started attending some of the trainings they were doing. They were a couple of months in and was able to provide something back.
Sick tea for me.
Detox for mom and sick tea for you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Ash, could you mute? Could you mute, Ash?
Oh, sorry. I thought I was muted.
It's all right. Good to see you.
But I've benefited of a lot of the training. And it's all the training.
Hey, Jim. Oh, sorry.
Similar things in the last city I worked in for 35 years. See some of this being developed over the years. I think they have a good product here. But I'm hopeful that we'll come and talk to you about that. From the law enforcement side, we have been attending that as often as we can get our staff there. We have staffing issues, obviously, and still need to be out in the field working, but we bring everybody that we can, even bring one on overtime to attend training. That's so beneficial. But beyond that, we've also invested in some principal policing training through the police department. That's really builds off of the 4 pillars of justice, and which are voice, respect, neutrality, and trust. And just some of the communication models that come along with that training. It also talks about identifying our biases and how to continue to work when we all have them. And so how do you work through that? How do you work in and create an environment where that doesn't affect what you're dealing with? That was an 8-hour training session. We've done a follow-up 4-hour training session there. But there's also so many different opportunities to seek training through posts, which is our licensing organization for the state police officer standards and training. And they have classes up and down the state continually. A lot of them are leadership classes where, for instance, the Supervisory Leadership Institute that Chief Ager talked about. Part of that 9-month course for sergeants and leaders is one of the months they go to the Holocaust Museum, White Call Center, and participate in the Tools for Tolerance program, which I did many, many years ago. Probably some of the best training that I've ever had as it relates to interacting with our fellow humans and understanding our role and what we bring to every interaction that we need to immediately work through to have an effective interaction. So there's a lot happening there. As Chief Ahern mentioned, the city of Eureka has also worked diligently, and the EPD originally kind of took some of the lead in this, but we're turning over our response to some of the things that Sundberg asked about with response to people who might have suicidal ideations. How do we respond to that? Is it effective to send a police officer to the door, or is it more effective to send a clinician? and have a police officer nearby in case they need help. And that's the model that the city of Reed is with their care program, which is crisis alternative response area. Alternative response area. The city of Reed has hired a clinician and is building a program now with caseworkers and clinicians. They're preparing cases and they're working with the mental health officers and the crime suppression officers and their community services officers, and they are actually making a big impact. My goal as a police chief is to have proper people dealing with the proper people. That makes sense. If it is a mental health issue, if we have clinicians available, that's what I would like to be working with that person. If it's a criminal issue, that's why we have police officers. So I would like to support, keep safe, however, take some of the focus off of law enforcement as social first responders. City of Reed is really ahead of their very, very proud of what they do. A couple of small things that we talked about and that we've actually instituted. One thing I'm very proud of is about a month ago, I got word of a third potential death due to exposure on streets of Korea. Absolutely unacceptable. And I was having lunch with one of our chaplains, Chaplain Rosie, and I said, what can the faith community do to help? He said, well, make a phone call. And an hour later, he called me back and said, this was a Friday. He said, on Monday, I have a meeting set up with you, three pastors. And that was my ask of them. What can you do to help? How can we get people who maybe don't want to deal with the higher barrier challenges of some of our existing resources? How can we get someone out of the has a dog, wants to stay as a couple, another family wants to stay together, all the things that are barriers to some of our existing shelters. And you know, within a week and a half, we had a warming center at Cornerstone Church set up with church volunteers and City of Reed employees included on there. Going out and letting people know about it. And we average about 29% of the people we tell about it will take us up on it. And we're opening it up based on National Weather Service advisories of certain benchmarks it has to meet as far as rain amounts, temperature, and wind chill. Set and all the church, they're opening it up. And my hope is that many of the other churches in the area will participate even as volunteers to help, so we don't put the burden all on one facility. But this is a fantastic response from the community for a community issue. It's not a police problem, it's a community societal issue. And it was just an incredible response, very humbling to me that it happened. So when does it happen in government? You ask a question a week and a half later, it's up and running with cops and blankets and food. It's just an amazing response. I feel grateful. And then, as Chief Ahern said, there's a lot of training going on right now regarding some of the leafleting and extremist things happening in the entire state. I attended two last week by the Anti-Defamation League. A lot of the information we already covered was covered there, so I won't read that. But there's ongoing training available to us, and I'm partaking of it as a leader, and I'm also bringing in people from the agency when necessary. I had a nice meeting today with our independent police auditor, who is working with our Commission on Police Practice, oversight of the police department. And it has been a great relationship as a new leader comes into a department. And I obviously have my own style and my wants as far as the way we investigate internal complaints. And now having an independent police auditor to review every complaint we do and offer suggestions on how we can fine tune what's already a very robust investigative process has been very beneficial to me. And recently, as before I came here, I had a great meeting with them and follow up. Something simple that we did the other day is human rights in relation to taking care of our human people that are here is I was also being briefed on, and those with my command staff, we were having enough pedestrian fatalities. And a lot of them are involving people who are living on the streets that are houseless. And they're wearing dark clothes and they're walking in the rain and they're crossing the street. So a really simple idea, $2.75 a piece, is we bought a bunch of beans that have a reflective band around it, hand them out. The mission, the city hall, like overseas place. It was fair when you're walking around at night, throw this on. I've already had feedback Tuesday night walking in City Hall and when it was burning. You know what? Almost got hit the other day, but I think the person saw my hat and signed on the brake. So I always feel that anything we do, law enforcement, saves one life. With all that effort. And that was an easy one. $2.75 a piece. So if you see them, they're all different colors. They got a little white band around them, and it's kind of a cool thing as I go around town now. People are hoping that it keeps getting hit. I had the opportunity to work for 30 years in Japan. So it's kind of like deja vu. I'm sitting here and I think of the hundreds of meetings we've been in where I've heard his voice. And he's always tough to follow up because it's such a great speaker and well researched. I'm happy to answer any questions. I know this is probably going along for you, so I'm gonna cut it off there. Just with the final word that first time I spoke to this session, it was to follow up on some events that happened at the Greenwood Police Department that did not reflect favorably on that. And I think anytime a police chief brought in from the outside, I was probably next interim police chief to wrap some of that up. Once I was here for a few months, I realized what an incredible group of people I was working there, what an incredible community this is. And I felt the need to give back everything people have invested in me throughout my career in another city. For 35 years, people invested in what I worked for and worked with them. And I wanted to pay that back. I am seeing such incredible dividends from that year that when you bring a chief in from the outside, it's usually because something's wrong. I'm telling you, your next chief in Riga would not be come from the outside. It is a good group who understands the damage that is done. Never wants to go through that. People that are here were embarrassed about it. The way I watch with people interact with the public daily basis. Not perfect. We make mistakes, but 99.9% of the time, I'm really good with the way I interaction with the person. Follow up with the body. Take care. Treat people well. And we're always open for suggestions. Always trying to. Anything you know? Questions on that?
I'd like to start with one that you basically opened with the DEI process the city of Eureka is going through. In what way, other than knowing about it, are the police department going to be actually involved? And seen any police representatives at any of the 3 meetings I've been to so far? Is that going to happen at a later stage?
To answer your question about those meetings, it has been scheduled. It's totally an issue I haven't been there. Usually I find out about them a couple hours before, and it's just impossible with my calendar. However, we have had several meetings with city staff, particularly after a couple of early sessions I went to. I felt there were opportunities to make it a little more effective law enforcement. Different. So I found the city to be very receptive to my comments. We had some great meetings where we even met with facilitators, were able to shape entire sessions just for law enforcement with only Eureka Police Department personnel and then spread that into a little more of the citywide response. But it's been a very inclusive program thus far. There's been a lot of involvement from PD. And
I just think that there's a potential for the police representatives, whether it's you or somebody else, in attendance, not just hear from the city of Eureka and Will Folger, but from the other people at the table who represent non-city entities, and that might be useful.
We will make an effort.
Larry.
Yeah, Jim, Ryan was mentioning that, they were down to 40% of the funding, positions that were available to them. Is it as severe for you folks?
It's severe. I think the percentages will be less. We are budgeted for 49 police officers and we're 41 right now.
You're not
Not quite as bad, but we do have some vacancies. We also are doing, we're not as doing as extensive of a recruiting tour as you heard. However, we have been doing quite a bit of recruiting. We have 4 that will be finishing field training within the next week. We added our full force. We're doing right now for the next academy. And my focus is to also hire 3 lateral officers from other agencies. We have challenges here. Challenges we're bringing from a California agency. Most of them have the same retirement system, and they're making most of them twice as much. And here, so it doesn't make sense for them. So we are trying to do some marketing outside of California, and particularly in often areas where police officers are not having fun in a particular environment anymore, and are looking to still take a professional, maybe move to a different area, and really playing up on all the great things that Humboldt has to offer the family. We are working on it, working diligently. We also, like Chief Ahern, would like to repopulate some of our specialist assignments. That really helps us get ahead of. But the reality is, for any police department, your main responsibility is when someone gets on a phone, calls 911, you need a fully trained professional police officer. Their doors will be good. So that's our must-have, and the nice-to-have things are personal special needs. But we'll get there.
Through my participation at EHHS Mental Health, I was lucky enough to be able to get into the CIP training that happened this past, I think it was October. It was incredibly impressive to see the progressiveness of the training and the emphasis of being able to provide treatment and handing off individuals in crisis to, as somebody who could help rather than gelling them and incarcerating them for having health challenges or other disabilities. But that was also in a limited capacity. It was a small group of individuals from all over Humboldt, and I wanted to know if you saw Eureka Police Department on a whole being a representative of those ideals.
Yes, like many Eureka Police Department personnel are involved in that training, putting the training on. We send several people every year for that, and the majority of our departments and through that. What we need to get through is next year's. It is great training.
I felt very lucky. It was wonderful to be able to see what's being talked about and what perspective people are coming from. Thank you.
Do one more question? I have just a few real quick. You mentioned the police auditor. Who is that?
That is the I'll get their business.
The other, I was just a couple questions. What is the relationship with the sheriff with the you guys meet fairly regularly?
Yes, it's great. It's a very strong regional response that has to be here because we just don't have members of a larger region isolated, so we have to depend on other. We have a county sheriff and chiefs group that meets monthly called WICA. So we meet at least once a month formally, and then most of us try to get together a time or two, grab a cup of coffee, and talk about issues that we're facing, bouncing off each other. So it's a very strong work group here. Boehner and I have been doing it for a long time. However, I've been very, very impressed with the cooperation made to, and again, active. So have a drug task work. You had any relationship? Oh, yes. Yeah, we've actually had a great working relationship when Cerberell's came to town over and we put that concert on. We needed a lot of help because there were a lot of concerns I had. So, yes, it was big. Very beneficial.
Well, thank you very much, Chief Jarvis. We appreciate your being here tonight. I'm personally pleased you're now not an interim anymore.
Thank you.
And
Are you permanent?
I am.
Congratulations.
Don't know for how long, but I'm ready to get back to being retired, but yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
have a nice evening. Thanks for staying. The next item on the agenda is for public comment. The public is invited to speak regarding matters not on the agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Pursuant to the Ralph M. Brown Act, the Commission may not act on an item that is not on the agenda. Comments received by email will be presented by the chair. Is there any public comment this evening?
Yeah, I was interested in speaking, if that's all right.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I was interested in speaking, if that's all right.
In speaking if that is all right.
Oh, yes. Yeah, you can have 3 minutes to share with us.
Okay, I'm just make sure. Can you hear me here just fine? Or
Yes.
okay, this is Ash Teeter once again. I haven't jumped into your meeting in a few months here, but figured I'd jump back in and make comments once again at the hate resolution that was passed, because there's been some recent developments with the county and the city of Eureka passing similar ones, and now the city of Ferndale is moving on to pass another similar one. And what the issue with that is they're coming down on a local church there, the St. Mark's Lutheran Church, over their sign that's over a specific statement it had on the sign that said, hurt by LGBT community healing here. And some people are trying to say that that's, a hateful comment, but also some people are of the opinion that that's just that's just someone's opinion. If you talk to the pastor at the church, he says that comes out of a place of love. It could be very well talking about, someone's grandma that has someone that came out of the closet, and it's just, come to the church and we'll, teach you how to, embrace your family member with love. And that's what a lot of the discussion in the community is kind of lost track of, is treating people's opinions as facts, when people are bound to have different opinions. And when it comes to what is hate speech, when you have two conflicting opinions and you choose one opinion and you call the other person's opinion hate, and I think that's totally wrong and needs to be reevaluated, especially with the shooting we just had in Tennessee, where an LGBT or someone who I identified as him, I believe, came in and shot like 9 people, killing 3 kids at a Christian school. So it's something that we have a national precedent that should be evaluated, so people are treated on an equal playing field. And, opinions are not, we don't just pick one person's opinion and say the other person's opinion is invalid and hateful. And that's all I really have to say. I just wanted to put that out there. I don't know if your commission can do any kind of proclamation that would, kind of level the playing field, but I would appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this point, any commission communications that you'd like to share with us? Almost, that looks like a yes.
Are we allowed to respond or do we
No.
generally just move on?
If it's not an agenda item, we just let it go. You
Okay,
could certainly absorb what you've heard.
I'm sorry. Can we talk about it later?
You can put it on a future agenda.
Yeah. You can
Yes.
ask to have it put on a future agenda.
Okay,
Let me know and we can schedule
that's a good procedure. Thank you.
that. Okay. Nothing?
Yeah, I had a, couple updates.
Okay. Go ahead.
So first, I reached out to Black Humboldt and it's just, we had talked about it last time, so I'm gonna follow up on that. And I'm gonna be speaking to one of the founding members. I was hoping to have done it before this meeting, but it didn't work out, so just try to get them on board and see what they would need from us. Oh, and then the other thing was that I did try to create an email list for us, but I don't know if it worked out. I think everyone had to accept that invitation individually. But if we did that, you should be able to email everyone on the listserv by just emailing that one email, so that we don't have to like type all 15 of our email addresses every time. Those are mine.
Keep in mind, we'll be talking about it in a couple of minutes, but when you're talking to Black Humboldt, that process has been extended to April 15th,
Okay.
but we're really going to have to have something definitive by that time.
Okay.
Yes.
I tried to participate in the listserv and I accepted and went through. I didn't understand what I was looking at and I was looking for. So maybe a little step-by-step, bullet pointed sort of like how this works might help.
That helped me too.
Yeah, yeah. That would be fantastic. Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments or announcements? Okay. The next thing on the agenda would be the message line report. And just so you know, Mary has left the commission. She had the first 2 weeks of March. Yes. But the second 2 weeks is Ellen.
So the vast majority of the calls that we received on the message line were from people in jail, both from the email and the mail unit. From the mail unit, there were some calls. Most of the calls weren't necessarily asking. It was hard to tell what they were asking for. That's a hard thing to name. One of the people that called, I think that Larry was able to speak to, and I hope that he was able to speak for. He seemed quite troubled, and I'm hoping he will be that. I only got one call that wasn't from the jail, and I called her, but it wasn't related. And what we did quickly, and she just was looking at here. Wasn't too many calls.
I've been on the phones for 6 days now. I haven't had a single call. So I'm sure that'll change. Please ready for it. Thank you. Which leads us to the next openings are for June 1st through the 15th.
And June first.
Oh, okay. And June 16th through the 5th. Okay.
How do?
I will share some documents that I have, and I'll send them out to everyone. I'm meeting with Kim, who is not here tonight. She's going to be up after I am, and she asked the very same question. So I'm going to do a Zoom with her. If you wanted to join us on Saturday morning at 9.
Is that complicated?
No, not really, but it's just easier for me to explain it that way.
I don't
I'll send you the information.
Obvious.
Oh, I wish I could. It sounds.
This would be real hard.
Okay. Okay, committee reports. Sanctuary Ordinance Committee. Got it? Nothing going on? Okay. Human trafficking and education and eradication. This basically has to do with EPI and their efforts to approach trafficking in the community. One thing is that we did fund their purchase of virtual reality headsets, and
That went through.
Hmm.
That went through.
oh, I was assuming it had.
Oh, okay.
I haven't heard otherwise.
Okay, good. So I haven't heard anything. yet.
Okay. I saw him this evening, but I didn't talk to him about that. And then, of course, as Bird asked earlier, the remainder of the Humboldt Area Foundation money that originally was to go toward human trafficking, that's been refunded to the commission to be spent in whatever way we see as appropriate. Yes.
And how would we say some idea? Like, is there a process?
So far, we've been very reliant on Tina Sims as the head of the anti-trafficking group. Empower, Protect, Invest, I think is what it's called. It's affiliated with the Foursquare Church.
Oh, no.
Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe I was.
For our money that you said it was refunded from the committee, right? So now
Yes.
it's in general funds.
Right.
General funds can be.
Yes.
Do we have a process of like suggesting what we think general funds should be used for? Are they just kind of sitting there? Right, like are we thinking of projects that we can propose, or how does that work?
It's up to us as a commission to decide if an idea crosses your mind that you'd like to propose, we could bring it up on the agenda.
Okay,
There will be something coming up this evening that will be an example
okay,
of that. And so we've never had much money to work with in the past.
Right.
We do have a few $1,000s that we didn't ever have before. And that's why that's an opportunity for us to consider what we can do. Yes, sir.
Maybe we should look at the criteria that we had for the human trafficking fund and look at that and how we could expand that for other projects and come up with a policy for how we do that. I think it's a really good idea that you brought up.
and I have a lot of ideas.
I was afraid of it.
Yeah. Right?
Oh, I was just kidding.
Don't be very, that's what it is. No, so, yeah, well, then can I propose for the next meeting?
We'll get to that at the end where you could propose agenda items for the next.
Perfect.
Okay. Cultural awareness. This would be here, Bill. Is your committee met? Oh. We do have a problem with committees not meeting very often. So we'll just have no report to make that. Homelessness and behavioral health.
Yeah, we haven't met either. We've heard there's a lot of interesting news on locally. The only thing I would want to comment on after the full meetings is how we deal with some of the personnel here. Reading one of the articles that published talking about this new self-help 24-hour service thing setting up. And they mentioned Connie back with the DHSS. Fact that this has been in the works for years. Why is it taking years? It's not something that should be taking years. It goes back to mentioned before what maybe we can do as a body to really push county to audit these people. They're getting a lot of money, state and other contributors. I want to know what they're doing.
I'm on the behavioral health board and I would love to discuss this. I think we should all discuss. That's it. I don't.
I mean, get a lot of you know,
Well, you are speaking of a bureaucracy there. And,
Getting high beyond the bureaucracy.
forever. No, I agree. Anything else?
No, well, the only other thing, I don't recall if I mentioned it at our last meeting, but Patty Ray that was speaking.
Yes.
She didn't get a chance to come because she was busy down south with her work center. I didn't want to mention to you that notes, because I did talk to her afterwards. She did tell me that they were open for 9 days. 3 of those days, $2 straight. She mentioned some of the same concerns. A number of you have already mentioned that, you know, separation of family, so much separation of family, you know, people with their animals, they have no place for them. And that's one of the reasons why I mentioned yes, because that's my division. That's what I'm involved in. Yeah, we're trying to have problems, you know, fires, especially floods that people have their animals have safely. That's what we do. And I don't know whether anybody showed up down south. Everybody's always not getting the services they really need. She mentioned that. She did say that Bushnell, the supervisor for the district, was very, very helpful. And PG&E helped. And they had a designated shelter, you know, provided by Red Cross. But Red Cross has very, very strict requirements how they set it up. It wasn't always so helpful. That was pretty much.
Is Patty still interested in trying to reschedule?
I'll see. I told her that we used to hearing.
It's probably be July now. She's always welcome. We had some technical issues, not to mention her.
Well, she
was busy.
She was busy.
There won't be any report from the logo committee tonight because Dotso is not here, and I haven't seen any. The last thing we discussed there was the updating of the agreed upon logo. And so until we see that, we really can't go any further. We do have a winner, and have you already?
She got her check.
She got her check.
And it was already cashed. I didn't wait. I don't blame her.
No, we might change it. Okay.
I love it.
The next item on the agenda is the PSA committee report. It's really progressing slowly, but the whole project is designed to offer a counterpoint to some of the misinformation about various vulnerable groups in the community. And we have 5 different groups indicate that they will participate. It took a little while, but I have had communities from the NAACP, from the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, on behalf of the LGBTQIA plus community, the rabbi from Temple Bethel, Centro de Pueblo. I still hope we will hear from Black Humboldt. So we've got some groups that could make up the core of an initial project. This is to produce the 15 and 30-second television commercials and corresponding radio commercials with just the audio from the TV commercials. The committee did lose somebody, and we would love to have somebody, especially with social media savvy, to join us, because part of the effort will go beyond just buying radio and TV commercials. It'll be to try to use the social media in an effective way to bolster the same process. So if there's somebody that would like to volunteer, did you just raise your hand? If anybody's interested, get back to me and we'll talk a little bit about that. The one thing we did vote to do was to propose a budget request of the commission. And it's going to sound large to you, but doesn't mean we have to spend it all. We have about I'm guessing.
I haven't seen any of the bucks.
Okay, I think we have about $6,000 available. The committee would like to request a maximum of $3,000 for this project. I think realistically, we're going to come in spending $1,500 to $2,000 instead. But the committee was anxious to have a high starting number so that if we ran into surprises, we could afford to do that without coming back for every meeting. Yes.
What do you spend in the window?
It's on production.
So like Humboldt access.
Well, we started with Humboldt access. We are talking to Channel 3 and 6. They've given us some ballpark figures, and would be a combination of you're paying for the production, but you're going to get a lot of public service announcements over a period of time. Certain ones would be within the news programs, which probably have their higher viewership. Also, the opportunity to participate in what they call Redwood Newsmakers. It's a 3 or 4 minute opportunity to explain what we're doing. I don't know who would do that. It could be me, or it could be us on behalf of the commission. So there's a lot of things. We needed to have a number in order to go back and say, okay, you say this is going to cost. Yes, we can do that. It's not that we want to spend it all. That's not the
I like the idea of spending a little bit more on social media.
Maybe that's where the difference
For
goes.
afterwards, to help their, like Facebook platform, you can boost posts and whatnot. If we could do something like that, that would be fantastic to talk about it. I don't know if it's a good idea or not, but it's an idea.
Yeah, absolutely. It's open for discussion. Yes, sir.
And I'll add, I don't have a huge amount of time. You have a professional camera system, probably. 5, 8 video. They can edit it. Probably make some videos. Now they'll probably do some studio.
I think their thinking is to do most of it in the studio, but that does give us the opportunity to supplement the studio with other visuals.
And also Facebook.
Yes.
Provide stuff. You can put it, generate all kinds of videos, so we can have real good quality, less quality.
I apprehensive to say this because I am so very busy, but I actually can edit video.
I think you might want to, oh, you're already on the committee.
Clone yourself.
But so if it's a large project, I won't be able to help. I actually have my own large project I'm working on.
Yeah.
But if it's a small project, I can help. Absolutely.
But we'll find out as we move along. What I would like to do is entertain a motion to approve a $3,000 maximum budget for this project.
I move that we approve a maximum of $3,000 for the PSA committee.
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion? Does everybody understand what we're doing? Okay, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. And it is, oh, we lost Lisa. Okay. So that's unanimously approved. Thank you very much. I think we're going to be very happy in the long run with this project. And the next committee meeting is April 28th at 5 o'clock in the evening on Zoom. So if anybody wants to become a member of this committee, we only need probably one more person. But especially,
Are you gonna send that out? to Everybody.
it's meant to be a committee meeting, but I can send it to everyone. Okay, sure.
Now, because you can write on the subject line, if interested.
Right.
Right, you are before.
And then maybe,
Just don't make it at 9 o'clock Saturday.
how do you say your name? Nazani. Naz.
If it is,
Then maybe Nazani would be interested. Maybe.
Yeah, that's true.
It's gonna start giving me like little treat. I can only do so much for free carrying the burden of being.
Oh, that's going to work for you?
Well, I mean, I can help a little bit with social media, but
So are you thinking like a free mocha?
yeah, that
And a
would
base train?
Oh, she
Okay.
drives easily. Okay.
Yeah.
be established. For doing this thing.
Okay. Well, I think we're done.
I'll try to make it.
Yeah, this is better.
Next item on the agenda is the Indigenous Peoples report. Oh, Lisa, do you have, are you still with us?
Lisa.
Unmute yourself.
She's not muted. Just as Gary has. I'm going to assume that committee has yet to meet as well. And also the Junior Human Rights Commission meeting.
I did want to say one thing with that. I did send something to Amy, but I don't know if you got it. I hope it's back years ago when I was teaching high school, we did City Works, which was a really excellent program. Got kids activated, also got city officials involved, and everything. That's a program to look at.
You've already sent that to
I sent it to the links for some materials that they had put together by, I think it's the Constitution West.
if Mary has left, we need one more person, Guy.
I'll think about it. It's like, I'll be in every group, right?
All right, we'll catch up with those committees at the next regular meeting. Lisa, I'm coming back to you under, we have no unfinished business, but we do have new business, and we were hoping to have you discuss Title IX issues related to the Humboldt tribe. We have. Okay, we'll have to be up in the future. Next item is observance of Juneteenth. I don't know if we know of an activity that we could participate in, but that is one that in yesterday's DEI meeting, they were discussing that, and I can't pronounce it. Vestahanda. that at Cal Poly. So these are opportunities for us to be participating, even if it's as simple as these are resource cards, which, by the way, I can get any number you might need for distribution. These happen to be in Spanish. Most of ours are in English, but even if we had a tabling event where, for instance, at Humboldt, we could have these kind of cards for distribution.
So I like giving them over to our high school.
Okay, some of these are going to Fortuna Police, but yeah, a few of them might.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if there's any interest in participating in either of these events, we could discuss that now, or we put it off till next meeting.
We should try to participate in both of them. Nazanin, you said you were talking with Black Humboldt. Could you find out from them if there's some observance for Juneteenth?
They usually do like in an at the
Mhm. And something that we might be able to participate in, or
Yesterday, Kinte Johnson, Dr. Johnson, was talking about Juneteenth, but he didn't have any specific information yet.
that's the NAACP. He's president. of the
He is.
Yes.
Correct.
So, but I thought Black Humboldt might have something. I think they did last year.
Yeah, I guess. I think that we are a few steps behind being ready to table for an event. We have a flyer.
We do.
Well, we
have flyers too,
we do.
and we have the signs.
Yeah, we do. We have materials as far as,
What does the flyer say?
Not a brochure,
Yeah, a brochure. We have a brochure.
what we have in,
I don't have one.
I don't have. But it explains who we are and
What our purpose is. It's blue, it's a
Okay.
trifold.
Well, then we did that, yeah.
We have that. We have these.
we have the sign that we, for businesses about instead of having a sign that says no shoes, no service, it says, what acceptable behavior. Respectful behavior is expected, or something.
So there are several materials that we can pull together to have a decent presentation. Yes, sir.
do we have a cabinet? We used to have a cabinet or.
Everything's at my house.
It's up.
It's still there, but it's in. And I couldn't get to it now anyway. So
Something you might put on the list for next time is,
I agree.
I know that college, CR and HSU, as Latino Film Fest this month. I guess another week. It's been going on now for several years. That might be something to connect with.
But are we already too late?
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty low. So
Yeah.
I think
I'm sorry.
Even if we don't participate in some of these events, we could certainly help publicize it to people through a letter to the editor or one of the PSAs, those kinds of things, so that we're getting the word out, even if we're not actually there.
Right.
I think what would really help is having a social. And I think all of these things are related. Don't know if now is a good time to bring up all my thoughts. Let me know. But I think we need to do a revamp.
Well, the next thing on the agenda is items for the next agenda. I think that would be for you to.
Great.
And you can right now.
Okay, well, no, I think all this stuff is really related. I think it has to do with making our presence known so that people can access us, so that we can do the job that we would like to do. So I think just in general, there's a lot of stuff that we could do, that we could look into doing for the community, other than just publicizing events or whatever. I think we could do organizing. I think we could do education. I think we could do policy advisement. I think there's a bunch of stuff that we could do. But I think a big part of it is just getting that social media presence, because even with the TV and the radio, like that's not going to reach the youth.
And that's why we wanted to add the social media aspect to that, because that would be more effective with
Yeah.
that.
Right, but we have to do like Instagram and TikTok. Facebook, the kids are done with Facebook. Did you guys know that?
I kind of suspected it.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's, we're moving on. So we should have a presence though, but if we had like, a place where, like, I want to look at that flyer. I think we should look at the flyers. I think we should make sure we have like a strong public statement and stuff like that, because if we have those things, then it's easier to advertise ourselves. There's a bunch of stuff that's like in my head that I think we need to do, but then after we create that media presence and make sure we have those statements and the cards, that it's all out there, then we can figure out like what we want to do to try and like be more active in changing the climate.
That's one of the primary goals.
All right, well, we got it into the social media realm.
But what I would like to ask you to do is to put this in a bulleted format of what you think you'd like to bring up on the next agenda, so that it's clear, concise as to what the goals are, and then we can have those as agenda action items next.
Okay.
Yes.
I think what you said, one of the most important things is the education, and I
Yeah.
think we should be looking at educational events
Yeah,
to,
and we could participate, like if we were to be able to do some of that work, like get that online presence, because it's not just about the online presence, right? It's about being connected to the community. We want to be more easily accessible, even just hearing, right, that the only calls we got were from one person and everyone else were inmates. It's good. We want them to be able to call. But it lets me know probably that just people don't know, because every day I'm sure there's incidents. Not necessarily that we would want to be involved in all of it, but we want to be accessible. So we have to take those steps to make ourselves know. And that's like the first part of the process. Then the second part would be, once we have our community, then we can tell them about these events. We can put on our own events. We do whatever, right? There's a bunch of stuff. Could be cool. But there's steps that we have to take.
I don't remember who's first.
well, and one of the things is that it is a continuous process. Because I have been on the phone times when I got 3 and 4 calls every day.
That's a lot.
And then other times when there was nothing. So it's a process. We have to keep ourselves in front of the
Right.
public so that they don't get about.
So if you're relying on a phone number,
Yeah.
how does the general public know about that phone number?
Right. I think we should create an online forum. I think we should create a response.
Well,
All of it. I need a note taker.
I've been on the commission for a long time, and it kind of waxes and wanes in terms of the energy and our awareness in terms of the community. We have in the past, and we've had a community gone out into the various communities and held forums, listening sessions of what's your human rights issues out here. We're in Bridgeville and Midway and
Garberville.
we're all over. We also did things and we'll create posters and put those posters up on every telephone pole in the town and say, hey, the Human Rights Commission is here. This is what we can do. This is our number, da 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 da. And again, because that is really critical. Right now, for one reason or another, we aren't as well known as we should be. So yeah, very true.
It's always a continuous battle.
Well, yeah, it is.
It is.
Yeah. nice names, and
Yeah.
it's really dependent on the personalities of the.
And there's like, the college is expanding and there's a lot of new people. The county is expanding, people are moving here. So there's just new people who need to talk about us.
And it's wonderful to see new young people on the commission. Because we got to a point where many of us were very tired, right, Larry?
That's okay. I'll try to see if I can wrangle Brandon to join.
There are two positions open right now. They both happen to be in, just
Does it matter?
Not really.
technically no,
Because I
but,
don't live in the district, I think I gotta sign
and Larry isn't in the district he lives in.
Okay.
I mean, he isn't a district, you know,
What it means is that
District
the
4.
supervisor, each supervisor has three
Has to be an
appointments, and they don't have to come from their district. They can just have to appoint. So that's how that happens.
So you want to suggest somebody that's got energy, ideas,
Like you.
We'll see. A lot of my friends are tired too.
you know, I
So,
if you're,
me too.
yeah,
Yeah.
I get that.
No, I'll look into it.
Any other items that people would like on the next agenda?
I'm not sure I'd like it, but it has to be, and that is, talk about elections. The elections happen in June, so you need to talk about
Yeah.
how that's going to process.
Our election cycle is from July through June. And so that'll be on the next agenda. Any other items for next agenda?
I think the things that I was thinking is gonna be like connecting to community. One, and then the second would be participate.
Yeah.
Two different combos.
Yeah, got it. Makes sense.
The only thing I would add is, maybe a governmental red-way activity.
Yeah, when Larry mentioned that a minute ago, I thought we did that a few years ago and we had a fair turnout at the, it's a school.
All I know is that, I know the reason for it, we have money, for the foundation, we have not used. We don't use it basically by June.
Or at least schedule it.
Yeah.
So a SOHUM
Yeah.
activity,
Some kind of activity.
would it still be okay if it didn't happen in June?
I don't know. If we can build it up, I'll send out the information. Yes or no.
There was nothing worse than being allotted money and then not spending it, because then they won't think you need it next time. So,
But that is the way our county.
And we have only that May meeting to really make those decisions, but about the money.
you're gonna have to make some big decisions in May.
Okay, so then another agenda item, which is kind of connected to participating in, I guess, is gonna be, I think everyone should come with proposal ideas for projects.
Good.
Yeah, that has to be on the board.
What was the amount?
Sorry.
The amount of money?
Well, we have about $6,000 available from one fund,
Yeah. Something.
1,200 elsewhere. The 1,200 is expiring fairly soon.
Yeah, that's what he was talking about. So the grant that's expiring.
I was just, an idea, maybe, we're using some of that money to bring up some, really good speaker that we could have in a forum. We were talking about, getting all these groups together for the PSA. This would be a great group to get together to have some kind of a forum. Have some, as I said, some highlight. Somebody that could, be a good draw, and the whole thing would, be a good PR for us.
So if anybody has an idea of somebody that would fit that kind of a description.
That, yeah, could be bad.
I don't either, but somebody might. Melissa,
Catch on to what Larry just said. In disability justice, we've been talking for a long time about, bringing in all the different marginalized populations to create a combined force to be able to, work together to, support, the human rights of, the marginalized population in general. And it was like one of those things where I've been thinking about this for years since I was in school, and I was just like, that's how they did it back in the day when it came to human rights movements. It was, you know, all the different populations together to make it happen. The early days of the ADA only occurred because, you know, Black Power and LGBTQIA groups work together to support the people with disabilities who are protesting down in San Francisco so that they could be able to promote inclusion and access in the community, you know, buses and ramps and, you know, and just general accessibility. I have no ideas of who it could be or anything like that, but I do know that that's something that's been on my mind.
bounce it around at the office.
Maybe.
And see if somebody has an idea. I know somebody there that might.
Okay,
Eddie might have an idea.
you might. Okay, I'll take it back and see if we can find something.
Okay. Any last items before we adjourn for the evening?
Safe out there.
Yeah, it's cold.
Yeah, but you look up. So you ain't real hard.
Okay, well, we'll call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.